Hey guys, Alice here and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about how do you avoid weight gain when you finish, say, on a dieting period or a meal plan, or maybe working with a coach and you've worked towards this awesome fat loss goal, or even a contest stage level of conditioning, or even just dieting down for summer. And you've got to this great physique and now you don't want to gain weight. So we know the normal cycle, a lot of people go on a diet, they lose 5 or 10 kilos and then they gain that weight back within, the first 6 months afterwards. This is very, very common, but we don't want to be this person. So how do we avoid that weight yo-yo and that rebound, so to speak, when you finish a dieting period? This is something that I help my clients with. It is hard, let's be honest, but at the same time, it can definitely be done with the right tools and strategies. As a coach, number one, the most important thing to work on with that client is a reverse dieting plan. Now that plan will be different for every single client depending on, say, how lean they are, what their new goals are, and then also mentally where their mindset's at. That's a really, really important one that often gets forgotten. Because say, for example, the perfect reverse diet for me with a client might be very slowly increasing their calories, monitoring this in terms of fat gain, in terms of weight gain overall, and chipping away. But let's be real, when you finish, say, a contest prep and you've been dieting for like 20 weeks, the last thing you want to do is still feel like you're on a diet. And often that's what you will feel like in the first few weeks of reverse dieting, because you're only increasing your calories a small increment. So as much as that might be the perfect plan, is the client going to be compliant to it? Sometimes not, because they're often going to be super, super ravenous, because when you finish a dietary point, basically your metabolism's downregulated, your hormone production's downregulated, that's just a part of it. And what tends to happen in turn with that is your leptin levels will decline. Now that's not a bad thing, it's just basically what happens within the body. It doesn't have an effect on fat loss or anything like that, but it can have an effect on hunger. So sometimes at the end of a dieting phase, people aren't actually that hungry, and it's often because of that. Now, when you start to bring calories up and reverse diet, then your leptin levels will rise and you start to get ravenous all of a sudden. So this is why often the perfect plan doesn't sometimes work with clients. So the biggest tips I'm going to run through now on reverse dieting, outside of the actual specific reverse diet itself, but just some general tips on how to help you if you finished a diet, you finished a plan, you felt awesome, and now you're feeling a little bit lost, maybe a little bit unmotivated. How can you keep yourself moving forward? So I'm going to give you my top 5 tips on this now. So number one thing that I do when I work with my clients on this topic is basically set new goals. It's really important to have some new goals, and I would almost suggest moving them away from aesthetic goals if you were someone that struggled a little bit mentally at the end of the fat loss phase. Setting some new goals that are more based around strength or physical fitness or overall health, something completely new. It might be a new goal of doing 10 bodyweight chin-ups or even 1 bodyweight chin-up. It might be a goal of deadlifting 100 kilos or running, 10 kilometers, whatever it may be, whatever floats your boat. Set some new goals outside of just the aesthetics, because often when the fat loss phase is over and you've got to your goal, that was what was motivating you before, and now that's no longer motivating you to get your butt to the gym. So we need something new to hold on to not only the results that you got, but keep you moving forward and progressing. So try to set some new goals. If they're aesthetic goals, then have them being around building a muscle group. But in saying this is a slower process. So building muscle is a slower process than losing body fat, for the most part, especially for females. So I would say focusing on a strength-focused goal, you're also probably going to grow that muscle group because you're going to be training it more frequently. So say, for example, you want to build your glutes, then you might have a strength-focused goal around maybe a hip thrust and maybe a squat or deadlift. Would be a really good goal to focus on, because you're going to keep progressively overloading in the gym. The more volume, the better volume and growth. We have got a result. So that is my number one tip. Make sure you have goals when you finish. Don't just finish and stop. Set some new goals, get back on track. Number 2, focus on the lifestyle change, okay? This is a big one. Don't just go back to your old habits. So definitely a lot of people will come to me and they'll say, I follow this diet and I was awesome for 6 or 8 weeks. Then as soon as I finished, I felt lost and I didn't know what to do. And it's like, but hang on a minute, didn't you set some great habits in place when you were following that? I'm sure you were meal prepping, I'm sure you were, getting your gym clothes ready, I'm sure you were scheduling in your workouts, and you were setting really good habits. I do believe that following a more rigid plan at times sets you up with good habits. Coming from an athletic background, definitely being an athlete and being quite high level in the sport, it set me up to create good exercise habits and make sure that exercise was an important part of my day. It wasn't just something that I had to do for fat loss. It was something that I was doing for overall health. So I would say try to focus on keeping some of the good habits that you had during, say, that fat loss phase going into your life. So if that is going to the gym on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, keep going to the gym on those days of a week. It may just be a case that you're maybe reducing your cardio volume or reducing your total volume in the gym, but still being consistent with those basic habits. Just because you finish fat loss doesn't mean you need to stop meal prepping or stop eating healthy. Keep the consistent habits. It's now a case of just often eating more food and training a bit less. But all the basic stuff that got you there, we need to keep in place when you come out of that phase. Just relaxing it down a little bit more, but definitely try to keep your good habits in place when you're coming out of that, and think about it more as a lifestyle change and lifestyle habit change that you've had formed. So that kind of rolls into my tip number 3, which is continue the good habits from your fat loss phase. So absolutely. So if your good habits from that were things like drinking 3 liters of water a day and maybe having 3 serves of vegetables a day and a serve of fruit and having nourishing foods, then trying to eat that for the most part when you come out of it. A lot of the time what will happen is people finish a fat loss phase and they start trying all these crazy foods, trying different things, and what ends up happening is their gut health blows up, you get problems with digestive issues, you feel bloated, lethargic, all of this. And often it's not fat gain, it's just a case of poor digestion and different foods coming into your body, maybe sodium retention and fluid. But it can mess with your head a little bit because you're starting to think, oh my God, I've gained fat so fast, now I need to get back into a diet. Absolutely not, but try to be consistent with the food you consumed whilst you're in that phase. As you're coming out of it, start to slowly reintroduce foods if maybe you're cutting certain things out, but do it slowly. So again, be consistent with the foods, just increase the volumes overall, increase your calories slowly over time. Number 4, still be accountable. I know this seems like a very basic one, but what I mean by that is when you are often in a fat loss phase, you're accountable to either your partner or a coach or a friend or someone. So you have that accountability of someone that maybe you're sending photos to or sending measurements to, or physically doing skin folds or maybe a DEXA scan. Keep consistent with that in your off season, or like I would call it, turning it into your lifestyle. Because what tends to happen is people stop being accountable and then we get a little bit slack and a little bit lazy. When you still have that accountability of someone that you're checking in with, even when you are not focusing on fat loss, it's really important to help keep you motivated. And if you are going a little bit YOLO, maybe being a little bit too relaxed with your food, gaining fat a little bit too fast, then you've got that accountability there of someone pulling you back into line and getting you to refocus and seeing what things maybe you're going a little bit too relaxed about. So I'd highly recommend, even if you're moving away from a weekly check-in with someone to a fortnightly or monthly, but at least having something quantifiable, or even maybe getting a DEXA scan done, body scan done every, say, 8 or 10 weeks, just something so that you have in your mind. And something like a DEXA scan or skin folds will actually show you also if you're increasing muscle mass or you're just gaining fat. Because I hear it all the time and people are like, I've been reverse dieting and I've put on 5 kilos and 3 kilos of muscle in a month. If you're a female and you are gaining 3 kilos of muscle in a month, you are not a natural athlete. We can say that. Females don't gain muscle that fast. So if you're putting on 5 kilos of fat in a month, 5 kilos overall in a month, I can guarantee you most of that's going to be fat. Maybe half a kilo might be muscle mass or lean tissue. So getting something like a DEXA done to keep you accountable to not only your goals and your movement forward and keep you motivated, but to also how you're tracking, and maybe if you're being too relaxed or even too strict at times. You might need someone to just say to you, it's okay, you're over a few grams of your macros, it's okay to have a free meal occasionally. And just getting you to chill a little bit more out and more move into that lifestyle transition of maintenance. Number 5 is understand that the scales are really no longer the be all and end all. So a lot of people when they're in a fat loss phase, they're really focused on the scales. For some clients, I think it's important, for others, not so much. Now, the reason I say that the scales are less important when coming out of a dietary phase is that now you're going to be eating more food, generally more carbohydrates, generally more variety within your diet, aka changes to sodium, things like I said before. You're also going to be, generally speaking, gaining muscle mass and building back lean tissue. So the scales are going to increase. That is just fact. They're going to go up. And now that is not a bad thing always. If the scales are having slow increases over the course of, say, a month, you're only putting on 1 kilo, then a portion of that is going to be lean tissue if you're training hard. So this is why I recommend, like I said before, keeping accountable to a coach or someone that can make sure that you are making progress in the right direction. If this is your maintenance phase and you're not wanting to gain any muscle or any fat, then obviously keeping more rigid amongst that. So like I've said, the scales are not going to be the be all and end all, but definitely find other ways of being accountable, because the scales will increase if you're trying to build muscle. And I think that's a hard one that females really struggle with, is the fact that when you are growing, the scales are going to increase. That is fact. It is not a bad thing. You're getting gains and that is okay. Let's just hope it's all going straight to the booty. So guys, those are my 5 tips for how to make sure you stay motivated and basically don't go backwards when you are coming out of a dietary phase. So we'll go back to them all again. Obviously the number 1 is having a great reverse diet and great nutritional plan set up with an experienced coach, having a coach outlay the plan for you and almost mapping out the next 6 or 12 months and having you understand that, and that you're on the same page is really important. And that comes down to the tip number 1, which is setting new goals. Number 2, focusing on the lifestyle change, that it's not just a case of diet and then finish. It's a case of now rolling in some of those habits into your lifestyle, but just being a little more relaxed. Number 3 is continuing the good habits from your fat loss phase. So if that is going to the gym on certain days a week, doing meal prep on certain days a week, being consistent with that. Number 4, staying accountable in some way, shape or form in terms of measurements, in terms of progress, whatever it may be. And number 5, understanding that the scales are no longer the be all and end all. They are still maybe a good thing to track in terms of progress, but often not essential in the case of an off season. I definitely prefer looking at measurements with clients, skin folds, these sort of variables I find, and photos obviously are much more quantifiable. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helps you come out of your transitionary phase of fat loss or dieting into more a lifestyle or maintenance position. I know it can be difficult, and obviously if you are struggling with any of this, you can always shoot me an email to alice@aliceround.com. This is something I assist clients with in building you an efficient reverse dietary plan. And all you YouTubers, hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying these videos. Please comment below. I'd like to do more of these sort of 5 to 10 minute tip videos, and if you really like them, please leave a comment below so it lets me know that you're enjoying the content and also helps the channel grow. Thanks guys, see ya!